I'm Nate. I'm Team 1816's, one of Team 1816's safety captains.
And I'm Kurt, I'm the other safety captain.
Yep, and we're just going to go over our team's general safety presentation.
Alright, so what is safety? The definition of safety is condition of being protected from or unlikely to cause danger, risk, or injury. And why we need safety in robotics is to protect ourselves and others from danger, as well as to tell the difference between a safe and unsafe scenario.
Okay, and then so here's a bit of a spiel from the first website, but really what it breaks down to is safety is the most important core value in first. It's above gracious professionalism. That is why safety captains are the only required position on the team. So it's really important to not only have safety as first core value, but to keep it in your team and keep it as a part of your core values. We also forgot to add, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Feel free to ask.
Alright, so some general rules to help keep you safe are running and horseplay are never allowed in the pits or near the robot. It can lead to people falling and hurting themselves. Safe work practices, which we'll talk about later, and always walk and work in a controlled manner. That yet again goes back to the falling and hurting yourself. And if you're ever using a ladder or elevated, be extra careful because it's very hard to determine your environment.
That last point too, you also want to be careful when you're working down low. You want to be careful with your back. Alright, so our team practices a lot of different aspects of safety in our workshop, and some of these are more specific to our team, but are really good practices to follow. So our team requires background checks for volunteers, mentors, and chaperones. That is, anyone who's going to be working with the team is background checked, so that includes chaperones for our tournaments, volunteers, our mentor, Mrs. Purdy, had to get background checked. And then, so our student-to-mentor ratio is 2 to 1. We really like that number because it allows the students to grow as individuals in the workshop and learn and use the tools and get hands-on experience, but it also makes sure that there's someone there to talk to them, walk them through it, and then make sure they're following safe work practices. And then finally, we have 1 fire extinguisher per build station. This is a type ABC. That means it can handle traditional fires, chemical fires, and electric fires. And at per build station, we check them annually. We like to make sure that they're always accessible and visible. And then in the time of danger, you can instantly know where to find one and you can instantly grab one.
So a very important location for safety is the safety closet. I know a lot of teams have centralized locations where you can find safety equipment. Ours is our safety closet. There you can find materials such as leather and chemical gloves for picking up and dealing with chemicals. Ear protection, headsets, and earplugs. We prefer headsets since they're reusable, but earplugs also work if you prefer those. We also have a safety binder, which is arguably one of the most important materials. It helps prevent future injuries by whenever someone is injured or comes close to getting an injury, you write it down so they're able to prevent it next time. Another very important thing to have at a close location, such as a safety closet, is a first aid kit. So first aid kits are very important when someone gets injured. Time is really critical in the severity of their injury. And you want to keep important chemicals such as lactate, pain, and grease in there as well.
Okay, so kind of break down what we have on this picture. This is our chemicals. So we have our adhesives, that's Gooby guns, that kind of stuff. This is PPE. These are the tool cases we use to bring our tools to competition. We have, I don't remember, that's the robot covers. So when we're traveling with the robot in the rain or in the winter, we cover our robot, just to prevent that. And then that is where our med kit and battery spill kit go, but we had them out to take a picture. Okay, so another important thing found in the safety closet and should be accessible anywhere you're working with a robot and a battery is a battery disposal kit. The batteries we use aren't prone to breaking, but can, and so you want to be prepared for that. So first you have unexpired baking soda. That's used to neutralize the acid of the battery. So you pour that on the broken battery and you make sure you use that before even attempting to handle it. Followed by chemical goggles. So those are the goggles you would use in like a chemistry class. Your safety glasses don't provide ample splash protection, so you want to make sure you're using those to keep your eyes safe. Finally, or next, not finally, we have chemically rated rubber gloves. You want to make sure they're chemically rated for the acid in the battery, which is sulfuric acid, because if it's lower, it can actually adhere to your skin and melt that on, and that will stay on and make it harder to swipe off. That includes leather gloves, because it will saturate into the leather fabric and then stay in contact with your skin for longer. And then gallon plastic bags are where you dispose of the battery after you neutralize the acid. So you get unexpired baking soda into that bag, and then you put the battery in there, and then you have to take your battery specifically to disposal. You can't just get rid of it, but you want to make sure you get that taken care of quickly.
And when you're disposing the plastic bag with the battery in it, make sure you don't just throw it into any trash can. Make sure you properly dispose of it. Personal protection equipment. This is the most important in keeping individuals on your team safe. We have eye protection, as we said before, safety glasses to wear in the pits and around the robot, the chemical goggles with side shields. And also, tying back long hair is very important for girls and also for guys. If your hair is long enough our rule is basically if it's past the shoulder, it needs to be tied back because it can get caught in the robot. And also avoid loose fitting clothing. So if you have a jumper on and it has like strings on it, make sure to tuck those in so they don't get caught. Hearing protection, earmuffs or earplugs, we use earmuffs. Hand protection, wear the correct type of gloves, as Nick said earlier, because if you wear the wrong type, it's sometimes worse than wearing any gloves at all, wearing no gloves. Foot protection, as much as we all love Birkenstocks, you really want to make sure to have closed-toed and closed-back shoes.
And a big thing too here is if you did FTC, you could wear side shields on any pair of glasses. But there's actually an impact rating required by FIRST to have side shields on your personal glasses, and you can find that rating on the inside of all safety glasses. It's a small number. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can find it quickly. And then the face shields too, if you're working in welding or anything like that on your team. Okay, so robot safety is pretty important. So first things first, when you're lifting the robot, lift with your legs, not your back. First of all, it's just easier. And second of all, the damage you can do to your back is very long term and very bad. Watch for sharp edges. Make sure anything you've cut is sanded down properly so that there's no way you could injure yourself. Then make sure your robot inspectors will ask you about that and check that. So make sure you do that beforehand. And also just for general safety practice. You always want your PPE around the robot, so that's glasses, closed-toed shoes, tie-back hair, tight-fitting clothing, and then you want to make sure that if you're using power tools around the workshop or around the robot or on the robot, you use your hearing protection. Communicate to everyone when your robot's going to be enabled. So our team just yells enabling, but make sure you communicate that, especially if you're working with mentors or members from other teams, and you make sure they know your systems, just so that everyone's on the same page and everyone can stay safe. Last point, don't stick your hand in the enabled robot. Just a good work practice. It doesn't end well usually, and it's a pretty quick way to get injured.
All right, hand tools. Make sure whenever you're using a hand tool, you're using one that's in good condition. If you use one that's old, sometimes it can shatter and shrapnel off into your face. Make sure you're working on a hard and stable surface so you don't hit a board and it comes back and hits you. Make sure you know how to use it correctly. We train all of our team members in how to use tools, and we suggest that other teams do that as well. And also use the correct hand tool for the task. For example, if you're trying to hammer in a nail, don't be lazy and just use the crescent wrench. Go get a hammer.
So a lot of that is, it's not about grabbing which tool's closest to grabbing the right tool for the job. So take the extra reps, grab the hammer, grab whatever you need. Don't try and make something work. It's just more dangerous than fun. All right, so power tools are really useful on our teams, but they're also a big deal. You really want to plan before you use. You have to have a mentor present. All parts of the tool are in good working condition. You want to check that. Make sure you've looked at all the parts, the blades, dull blades, broken rowlets, that kind of stuff. You want to know how to use the tool, so make sure that if you don't, you ask a mentor, you talk to another teammate. Make sure that you know what you're doing and what you're going to do with the tool at the time. So stay focused. You don't want to get distracted, distract others, get your job done and get out. Don't leave unattended while it's on. If you're using it, use it while it's on. If you're done, turn it off. And just complete the task as safely and efficiently as possible. It doesn't have to be quick, but just make sure you get it done. And then finally, store safely. That's especially important if you're traveling from your workshop to competition or competition to your workshop. So none of the parts get damaged, or you can have a potential problem that won't get caught in the pre-use check. So you really want to make sure that those are stored properly.
All right, online safety. I'm pretty sure everyone in here has some sort of social media account. As a general rule on our team, we do not publish students' last names anywhere online and videos on our social media accounts. And when using your social media account, remember to be gracious and professional online, even if it's not a robotics-related account, because people can find those accounts. And make sure all emails and pictures are appropriate and professional. You don't want your team to get a bad rap because it's something you posted.
And it's not only your team, you represent FIRST and FRC as a program, so you really want to make sure that online you are being a good member of your team and a good member of the FIRST community. So that's practicing gracious professionalism, that kind of stuff. All right, so outreach, safety. We participate as a team in a lot of outreach, and we have to make sure we're safe there as well as in the workshops. So first of all, we start out with name tags. All of our team members are required to wear name tags at outreach events. And then when we're working with kids, yeah, Mrs. Purdy has her name tag on. So it's that, it distinctly shows that she's on 1816. If it gets lost, it has a method to get home. So we have those made for all members of our team, and that's a really good way to do it. And then we also make sure that if we're working, so we did a Simpson Housing, which is a long-term homeless shelter, and we were working pretty one-on-one with little kids, and we made sure that they all had name tags so that we could address them by name, which first of all is a respect thing, but it also opens the communication and makes sure everyone can communicate what's going on and stay safe. So we travel in groups. We participated in a block party style activity in downtown Edina, and that involved handing out flyers, and we made sure that if you left far away from where we were, you would actually be with someone else, since you know where someone else is at all times and can stay safe and keep each other safe. So safety glasses while working on the robot or around the enabled robot is important because it's still a robot. It can still be dangerous if you don't follow the correct precautions. So we designate crowd control. So we establish where people can and can't be. And sometimes that involves setting up physical barriers. At the block party we set up barriers with our team banners so that people couldn't come from angles we weren't expecting. And so we always knew where the flow of traffic would be and we could make sure they were safe. And finally, the explanation of the robot is really important. It allows you to, first of all, show the program and show what you know, but also make sure that people know where the danger on the robot is and can make sure that they're watching out for it.
All right, driving safely. I'm pretty sure everyone here either drove here or was driven here. And the leading cause of death among teens our age is driving accidents. So it's very important to stay within the speed limit and avoid distractions such as loud music or in-depth conversations, as those can also be as distracting. Make sure to treat other robotics team members and teams with respect on the road, and don't participate in any reckless driving practices, no matter how tempting. And as a passenger, you are responsible for how your driver drives. If you see them speeding or doing something reckless, it's your responsibility to remind them. And the reason this is so important, not only for the safety of you and the safety of others, is also because you can land yourself into some pretty deep legal troubles.
And so a good practice with driving is to establish clear punishments for these kind of activities. So make sure if they're caught breaking these rules, they can't drive to robotics, they can't drive kids on the team. To really establish that there is a punishment beforehand, so that there isn't left to chance like, oh, what happens if I got caught speeding? The kids will know, and they'll know to not do it, not only for the fact of not getting punished, but because it's dangerous. Okay, so this one slide is really important. We've had, the Minnesota First Community has had a couple members of groups commit suicide, so we really want to talk about this and make sure it's addressed. Because high school robotics is a lot of stress there, and you have to make sure you deal with it. So during the year, if you're dealing with a loss or an emotional event, take a break. Do what you need to do to really deal with that, and talk to a team member about it. You can reach out to your mentors. But make sure you communicate clearly what's going on to your team. So if you're taking a break, to say, hey, I'm dealing with something at home, I need to take a break. So that your team knows that you're not just disappearing on the team, you're actually doing something that's really important. And then so also they can help you, they can make sure that you're doing well.
This especially was important to our team because we had someone in our high school commit suicide who was close to a lot of members on our team. And we saw the effects that could have on people. All right, safety at competitions. During competitions, you really should have a cell phone or somewhere you can be reached at all times. Buddy system, have a friend with you. Never give out personal information to anyone you don't know. It's just like the general rule. And if you see someone acting unsafe, your teammate or anyone else, it's okay to interrupt and tell them they're stopping unsafe, because it can put them and you in danger.
Okay, so this is a bit of what our team had did for a couple of our competitions, and it's a good practice. So we established evacuation plans. We were at Duluth for our first regional last year, right? And so we established that if there was an emergency, you would stop what you're doing, evacuate the building, don't go back to get your stuff, don't go looking for team members, just get to our designated meeting location, which I remember correctly was across this bridge, right, Brendan? Yeah. Brendan was our safety captain last year and really helped us get through a lot of this stuff. So if you have any questions, ask him afterwards, or yeah. And then here was at our second regional, which we were at. We are in Minneapolis. So I think you were
Williams.
supposed to-
You're at Williams.
Williams, thank you, sorry. And then we were supposed to meet around this building, right down the street up here. And we had, beforehand, we established the addresses of all of those and made sure kids knew where they were. And we also had a numbering system, so every team member was given a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to was 56 or something last year. And that's good for making sure everyone made it out of their room in the morning, but also in case of an emergency, it allows you to quickly see who's gone and who's here and stuff like that. Does anyone have any questions at this point in the presentation?
Alright, pit safety. Most of the stuff we covered before, but as review. Robot safety features such as yelling enable when you're enabling it, and also pit flooring, which can help with students. The battery disposal kit is very important for cleaning up battery spills. If they go unchecked, it can lead to a lot bigger problem. Battery box helps keep track of all the batteries and helps keep them charged. Fire extinguisher, safety glasses, first aid can all be found in the safety closet or around there. Gloves, make sure you're using the right type of gloves, and safety binder. Anytime someone is injured or comes close to injury, make sure to jot it down.
And then while at competition, these are required in all, or the battery disposal kit and the first aid kit and fire extinguisher should be found in every team's pit. So if you do have a problem with a battery where you need a first aid kit, you don't have to run back to your pit, just reach out and say, hey, can we get your battery disposal kit? Can we get your med kit? Can we get your fire extinguisher? Teams are there to help each other out, so really just ask. Okay, so more pit safety. Only 5 people are allowed in the team pit at a time, so we found that number really works and is really manageable. And if there are more than 5 people in the pit at a time, just have all non-essential personnel clear out. Well, that job seems like it's attributed to safety captains. Anyone can do it, and if the safety captain's not there or they're not doing it, step up and say something. Because safety is everyone's responsibility on the team. And then you must wear your PPE in the pits. So that's shoes, glasses, ear protection if you're working with heavy equipment, shorts or tight shirts, no baggy clothing, no long hair tied back, drawstrings tucked in, that kind of stuff.
Alright, how to handle batteries. So I actually didn't know the first bullet point, don't plug batteries into each other, until about 10th grade. I was in physics class. I accidentally plugged 2 batteries into each other before going to lunch. And when I came back, they had exploded everywhere. My physics teacher was really mad. So that just shows how, even though you may think something's obvious, you need to make sure that people on your team know the essentials of it. So never plug batteries into each other, because they can bulge up and explode. Hold batteries with 2 hands, that'll help keep you from dropping it. And also, if you hold it with one hand, you might damage the battery. Don't pick up a battery by the leads. If you hold it by the leads, you might pull out a cord, which will break it. Battery beacon, the test battery charge. If you drop a battery, notify them right away, even if it doesn't crack open. A lot of times when you drop a battery, the damage is very internal and hard to detect, but just because you don't see a crack doesn't mean you should just push it to the side. We've seen this at competitions before where it's been dropped and it's been pushed to the side, and people forgot about it, and it's come close to exploding. And
Go ahead.
and make sure, yeah.
Okay, and then two, if you see a battery that's bulging or looks like it's been on the charger is getting like uncomfortably hot, reach out and say something. Well, first of all, unplug it, but you can really tell when a battery is bulging over, and you can. So if you think about it, just ask. But it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when you're working with batteries. Okay, so I think we're actually going to try and play this today. But to present safety for our team, we had a team retreat. We gave our safety presentation at the beginning of the year. So we used questions like this, and we used this kind of stuff to make safety more enjoyable and engaging. And is it loaded up? Do you guys know how Kahoot works?
Yeah.
Yep.
What screen is an LCD or what? Eighth place.
Well, the diamond and the square.
Brandon, what place are you in?
Square.
Well, speaking of these,
I'll do it Monday.
it's possible.
Yep. So
That's the point.
yeah.
Oh,
Brandon,
How is this possible?
you guys are playing with a safety expert. So.
I was dying right around.
How did you get that question?
That Ryan was used to.
Aiden's beating Brandon.
Ask a question.
All they go down. It's the lightning. How did you get charged?
Jeez, I'm not sorry.
I don't like when teachers do that.
Even though I did it myself.
I'm up.
He's going down. Yeah, Brandon.
Aiden, we wrote that slide just for you, so.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It's
Remember
true.
you're on the line to play.
True. That wasn't me.
That was,
Jordan.
oh, that was Jordan.
Jordan.
Oh, okay.
Do you think Brandon's that good of a driver?
What?
Do you think Brandon's that good of a driver?
Yeah, I'm great.
You guys were like so slow too.
I'm great.
It's like experimental.
Wait, there's two
Yeah, that's the problem.
I know,
There was a clocks too fast.
I know you two in the back were talking about safety industrial. Do you have any questions about that? Brandon is experienced in that more than us.
What's up?
What would you say was the most key in getting the industrial safety award?
what was the most team getting the Industrial Safety Award? I would probably say that's more of a presentation skills kind of thing. And you want to make sure not only are you using those safety practices that people expect you to use every day, but you want to be creating your own and figuring out how to innovate and how to really come up with your own practices that you feel like would be necessary to have on your team that kind of sets you apart from other teams. And so kind of what I did for mine was I added that mental safety slide, as you saw on there, based off of what happened last year. And then I also, I was also facilities lead, and so I did a lot of woodworking and whatnot. And so I created some safety features for our battery box, including a handle that helped with wrist stress, because kind of when you lift the battery with your hand itself, it would create stress on your wrist, and so you can end up with wrist pain by doing that. So I created a handle where it would be easy to lift the battery out of the box without scratching yourself on the wood or anything, or creating wrist stress, and being able to just lift it out of there and then using it for whatever you needed it for. And so the judges really liked that, and really like to see that you're really proactive about safety.
Curious side question, is that handle 3D printable by any chance?
It is not made out of wood. But it's a pretty simple design. It's really just, you have a handle portion. I made it out of 3/4 inch plywood. And so you have the handle portion, and then you just create a cradle for the battery.
I bet Corey could 3D print it. Could we get do you have it like in a CAD or anything like that?
I do not have a CAD, but I could probably get my CAD sub team to create something.
It's not wildly complicated.
Yeah.
It's basically a box inside of a box with a handle on it.
Okay.
Pretty much. That just slides easily between the two when you lift it up.
Right.
Okay.
Are there any more questions? Yeah?
How much wood would you charge?
How do you get kids to actually want to be safety? Because on our team, it's like opposite.
So, Aiden, are you the closest to this system of how did the safety captain work on our team?
Yeah, so it's definitely like most of our team chosen with like a group between the student leaders and mentors. And because safety is so important in our team, being safety captain really is a pretty prestigious position. And then if you really can't find someone to be safety captain, it's a good job for a rookie to help get them like excited about the team. And like Nate there is a rookie, whereas Kurt is a more experienced member. So they're really helping each other out, and Kurt is helping train Nate. So yeah.
Potentially for future leadership positions.
So, I think a part of that too is they just choose you. And then they make it prestigious, like you're chosen, but it's something to be proud of, it's something to...
You also have to make it sound appealing too, and like, I mean, like when it comes to safety captain, like let's be honest here, not a lot of people really find that exciting at first, but it all depends on what you do with it, whether or not you make it fun for yourself or not.
How do you guys make it fun?
I made things, like I just talked about the handle I made.
You need coloring books.
Oh yeah, and coloring books too. But just finding different things you can improve really makes it more fun, because you're putting yourself to work and you're making yourself do something, and you can kind of combine it with different things that you also do on the team as well, just to make it more fun. So like, for example, let's say you're on build and you're also safety captain, you can find different things to build or rebuild and kind of make safer, basically. So let's say you had your robot cart and your robot cart doesn't have a slot. You think your robot cart could use a slot for a first aid kit or use a spot for a fire extinguisher when you bring it onto the field. Not only would that help you in presentation-wise and award-wise when you talk to judges, but it's also a good thing to put yourself to do, and you can just make like a different slot, like a little holder for your fire extinguisher or a little box for your first aid kit, and put that to work.
And, you know, making things safer around the shop, like seeing like if your table saws have anti-kickback mechanisms and making sure that you have push handles for when you're using the table saw, things like that.
Any other questions?
Thank you for presenting.
I think we should go into a little bit about how our team presents safety to the rest of our team, because we did pretty well with our industrial awards. And so our team, that presentation you saw was a version of the presentation we gave at our team retreat, which is really like kind of the kickoff of the year where all the rookies who are interested are officially added to the team. And so we had that out there, and it was really a good place because it sat everyone down, got in a room, and established safety expectations. And then we put the coup, and they won prizes, and then they had to take the safety quiz, which is a 17, 18-point quiz. Pretty simple, but it makes sure that like they paid attention, they understand what's going on, and they really understand where safety lies on our team. And then we also make sure that just because we're safety captains doesn't mean it's not anyone, or it's more our responsibility to be safe. It's more about how everyone on our team is responsible for the safety of everyone. You have to make sure that you're following these practices and make sure that you're reinforcing. So if you see someone in your shop not wearing safety glasses, it's a better practice to pull them aside and say, hey, put on your safety glasses, than to do it in front of the group. And then to compliment or promote people who are doing good safe practices in front of the rest of the group. So you make it like a positive feedback versus negative feedback, which you change how it is. Any final thoughts, fears, concerns, aspirations?
Any questions about the award itself?
Yes.
Anything like that?
Tips on safety outreach as well?
Yeah, so like they had on their outreach side and their different safety practices that they had for outreach, you want to make sure you're enforcing that too, because the safety judges really like to see that you're not only enforcing safety for your team, but for other people as well. That really shows that you know what you're doing with safety, and you're actually practicing these safety practices that they've laid out for you.
Is there paperwork that has to be filled out for safety managers?
No, there isn't really paperwork. The only papers you do get is at competition when they have you go around kind of checking out other people's pits and doing like safety start of the day and that kind of stuff. You get one each day for the first 2 days of competition, and so you pick different teams for that kind of stuff. And also, the safety star of the day that they have on there doesn't have to be the safety captain on another person's team. It could just be someone on their team that you see performing, doing like a good safety deed, that kind of stuff that you find appealing. Yeah.
How many people would you recommend to put on a safety team?
It really depends on the size of your team.
So we have a 10-person team.
10-person team, then you really only need like one person.
Last year we were 56, around there, right?
Yeah, around 50.
So around 50, and functionally we had 2 safety captains. Brandon was our safety captain, and we had an assistant safety captain who was trained in everything involving safety.
We have a similar system in our team where we usually have an assistant.
So for safety, you probably one person on safety for 10 people?
10, I don't know, it really depends on how your team, like, it's a lot about the culture of safety on your team and then how you address, because 2 is a pretty strong number. because that means you can have, like, if one safety captain's out doing something for like a chairman's award or an outreach event, you can have one still in the workshop. And then also if one of them is out of the pits, you know, you can have one there. So I think 2 is a pretty solid number. 3 if you're really pushing high numbers of people, but. And then, for safety industrial, at Worlds, they actually asked our team to have one of our non-safety captains present. So make sure that your team knows your safety stuff and knows how to deliver that truth.
Any other questions? Yeah, the safety captain's job isn't really to only micromanage everyone on the team, because if you have a bigger team, that's hard. It's also to set a role model for how things should be done, and that's really what has a lasting impact on people. Yeah.
All right, if there are no, what's our contact information? Is it contact Eddie Guy Robotics?
Yeah, also, if you want more safety stuff and safety presentations and safety quizzes, we have that all on our website at edinarobotics.com. So Nate, if you want to write that
Yeah.
up there.
Kurt, can you write it? Because my handwriting's bad.
I'm sure to go.
I think,
Yeah, so you just type it on the.
oh yeah, we can type it. You know, Aiden, this is why you're seeing. What is our website?
edinarobotics.com.
Yeah, if you just search Edina Robotics as well, it should come up.
It's really pressuring, guys.
And we have all of our safety presentations on there from like the last 10 years.
And then,
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
How long have you been with them?
about 2 months.
We've just been 2 months with great machine.
Yeah.
He's a rookie.
I've done FCC, but nothing like this.
Okay, I was gonna say, we've been there a long time.
And then,
Give them some slack.
a quick roast there. If you want, we have our safety quiz, and it's laid out on our website, and just reach out, ask us any questions, we're always here to help. We have a lot of good safety mentors and good safe kids on our team, so just any questions you can approach us after this too as well.
Also, feel free to use any of the stuff we talked about today in your safety presentations. We really just want to help instill a culture of safety.